Hi Year 10, today we're looking at the midpoint of an interval line. Now this can be easily found by eye for horizontal or vertical lines on a number plane. However, for diagonal lines it can be trickier. So to find the midpoint of an interval, we find what is halfway between 2 points or the average of 2 points. So I'm going to go through these first 3 questions. I'll do the I do and then you can have a go at the you do. So for question 1, we want to find the number halfway between 2 and 18. So to find the number that is halfway between, we add the 2 numbers together. So we're going to go, what is 2 plus 18? And then we're going to divide this by 2. So 2 plus 18 is 20, divided by 2 is equal to 10. Now, to find what is the average of 8 and 14, we're being asked to find what is the halfway point as well. So we add the 2 numbers together. So we go 8 plus 14 and divide this by 2. Now 8 plus 14 is 22, divided by 2 is 11. Now we want to find what 3 plus 7 divided by 2 is. So all we do here is we add what 3 plus 7 is, which is 10, divided by 2 is equal to 5. Alrighty, pause the video here and have a go at those 3 you do questions. Alrighty, you should have had a go at those questions. So for this first one, we want to find the number halfway between 3 and 9. So we add 3 and 9 together, divide by 2. 3 plus 9 is 12, divided by 2 is equal to 6. To find what the average of 5 and 7 is, we add the 2 together. So 5 plus 7, divide by 2. 5 plus 7 is 12, divided by 2 is 6. And lastly, we've been asked to find what 4 plus 14 is, divided by 2. So 4 plus 14 is 18, divided by 2. Our answer is 9. Okay, so we can find the average or what is halfway between 2 points by adding the x values together and then dividing by 2. This means that we'll have x equals x1 plus x2 divided by 2. So for these questions, again, I will do the 2 I do's and then you can have a go at the you do. So the I do question says, if x1 and x2 are given, find the value of x when x equals x1 plus x2 all divided by 2. So we have our x1 value here and our x2 value here. Our first step is to write out this formula of x equals x1 plus x2 all divided by 2. So we are writing out what our rule is here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to replace our x1 with the 5 and replace our x2 with the 21. So we'll have x equals 5 plus 21 all divided by 2. So we have now replaced our values. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get our result. So we'll have that x equals 5 plus 21 is 26 divided by 2 and x then equals 13. And so then we get our result. So we do our rule, our replace, and our result. For our next one here, we have x1 equals 2 and x2 equals 10. So we are going to firstly write out our rule. So our rule is x equals x1 plus x2 all divided by 2. So we have written out our rule. Now what we're going to do is we are going to replace our x1 with 2 and our x2 with 10. So we will get x equals 2 plus 10 all divided by 2. Now 2 plus 10 is 12 all divided by 2 gets us to have x, our result, equals 6. So we have done our rule, replace, and result. Okay, you guys are going to have a bit of time to have a go at the you do. You're going to, if x1 and x2 are given, find the value of x when x equals x1 plus x2 all divided by 2. For A, you have x1 equals 6 and x2 equals 24. For B, you have x1 equals 1 and x2 equals 9. So pause the video here. Okay, so for this first one, we have our x1 equals 6 and our x2 equals 24. So we want to write our rule, x equals x1 plus x2, all divided by 2, and we are going to replace our x1 and x2. So our x1 is being replaced with a 6 and our x2 is being replaced with our 24. We then have that 6 plus 24 is 30 divided by 2 leaves us with x equals 15. So for your working out, you should have had your rule, you should have replaced your values in your rule, and then you should have gotten your result. Okay, for B, we have x1 equals 1 and x2 equals 9. So same process here. We have that x equals x1 plus x2, all divided by 2. We'll have x equals 1 plus 9, all divided by 2, and x equals 1 plus 9 is 10, divided by 2 gets us our result that x equals 5. So you should have done your rule, then replaced, and then gotten your result. So your 3 R's there. Alrighty, make sure you have that copied down and then turn over the page. So that is finding the midpoint of some x coordinates. So we actually have the midpoint formula that helps us with this rule. So the coordinates of the midpoint of a line between 2 points can be found calculating the average of the 2 x coordinates and the average of the 2 y coordinates. So what we were doing in those previous questions was just finding the middle of 2 x coordinates. Now we're putting it all together with the middle of 2 y coordinates as well. So for this, our midpoint formula is m equals x1 over x1 plus x2 all over 2, and then comma y1 plus y2 all over 2. And we have this in our brackets because we are finding the coordinate is the midpoint. So for this I do question, I'm going to do the first one and then pause and you can have a go just because it is a little bit more difficult. So we want to use the midpoint formula to find the midpoint of the interval joining the sets of points. So our midpoint formula is m equals x1 plus x2 all over 2, y1 plus y2 all over 2. Now you might be wondering, our x1, y1, x2, y2, what are these? So what we have is we have in this first coordinate A, which is 2, 4, we have that this first value is our x coordinate, so we're going to call that x1, and our second value here is our y coordinate, so we're going to call that y1. We then have our second coordinate, and our 6 is our x coordinate. I'm going to call that x2, so it's our second coordinate. And then we have that our 10 is our y2. So what we have is that x1 equals 2, y1 equals 4, we have that x2 equals 6, and y2 equals 10. So now what we're going to do is we're going to substitute these in, or replace our x1 and x2 in the first fraction, and then we're going to replace our y1 and our y2 in our second fraction. So what we'll have is that m equals our x1 of 2 plus our x2 of 6 all over 2, comma, our y1 of 4 plus our y2 of 10 all over 2, comma. And so then what this equals is we have 2 plus 6 is 8 over 2, and 4 plus 10 is 14 over 2. So our midpoint is therefore the coordinate 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. So the midpoint of these coordinates is 4, 7. Okay, I want you guys to have a go at this first one for me. So we're going to use the midpoint formula to find the midpoint of the interval joining the sets of points. A is 1, 4, and B is 5, 6. So pause the video here. Alrighty guys, let's have a little look at this. So we have our formula, m equals our x1 plus x2 all over 2, and our y1 plus y2 all over 2. We have our coordinates. Our first coordinate here, A, is the coordinate 1, 4. So this 1 is x1, y1 is 4. Our second coordinate is 5, 6, where we have x2 is 5 and y2 is 6. Let's write these over to the side. So x1 equals 1, y1 equals 4, x2 equals 5, y2 equals 6. So now what we're going to do is we're going to replace these in our formula. So we'll have Murphy, our x1 and x2 get replaced in the first fraction, and then we have our y1 and our y2 in the second fraction. So when we replace these, you should have gotten m equals our x1 of 1 plus our x2 of 5 all over 2, and then our y1 of 4 plus our y2 of 6 all over 2. We then want to add that numerators together. So 1 plus 5 is 6 all over 2, and 4 plus 6 is 10 all over 2. Now 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So that means that our midpoint of the two coordinates is the point 3, 5. Alrighty, let's have a go at this B. And then we have C's to do as well. So I might do B and C here, and then I'll pause and let you guys finish that off. So let's go through that process again. So we have the point A, 3, 4 and B, 8, 1. So again, we're writing out our formula, m equals x1 plus x2 all over 2, y1 plus y2 all over 2. We have that x1, y1, x2, y2. So over to the side, we have x1 equals 3, y1 equals 4, x2 equals 8, and y2 equals 1. Now we're going to want to substitute these in to our formula like so. There we go. Okay, so we'll have that m equals our 3 plus 8 all over 2 and 4 plus 1 all over 2. So we get that m equals 3 plus 8 is 11 divided by 2, and we have 4 plus 1 is 5 divided by 2. Now we can leave our midpoint coordinate like that as a fraction, because we know that 11 over 2 doesn't go into 11 nicely, or we can write it as a decimal. So we can write m equals 11 over 2 as a decimal is 5.5, and 5 over 2 as a decimal is 2.5. Okay, this last one here for C, we have some negatives involved now. So we'll have our formula m equals x1 plus x2 all over 2, and y1 plus y2 all over 2. Again, we have our x1, y1 point, our x2, y2 point. So we'll have that x1 equals -2, y1 equals -6, x2 equals 4, and y2 equals 2. So now we want to substitute these in to our formula. So we're replacing our x1, our x2, our y1, and our y2. And so we'll have m equals -2 plus 4, all divided by 2. And then we'll have -6 plus 2, all divided by 2. Now, -2 divided by 2, -2 plus 4 is in fact +2 divided by 2. And then -6 plus 2 is -3 divided by, -4, divided by 2. So then we have 2 divided by 2 is 1, and negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. You can put these fractions like this into your calculator as well to get this final answer down here straight away. Alrighty, so you guys are now going to pause the video and have a go at B and C. Once you have finished B and C, you're going to do pages 5 and 7 in your linear relationships booklet. Okay, let's quickly go through B and C. So we want to write out our formula. And we want to substitute in, or we want to label what everything is first. x1, y1, x2, y2. So x1 equals 7, y1 equals 1, x2 equals 3, y2 equals 5. We then want to substitute everything. So we'll have x1, x2, y1, y2. Okay, so we will have m equals 7 plus 3 divided by 2 and 1 plus 5 divided by 2. So we get m equals 10 over 2 and 6 over 2. So m equals 5, 3. So our midpoint is the point 5, 3. For C, we have our formula or our rule. M equals x1 plus x2 over 2 and y1 plus y2 over 2. We have the point x1, y1, x2, y2. x1 equals minus 3. y1 equals negative 7. x2 equals 1. y2 equals 3. We're going to now substitute in. So we then have that m equals negative 3 plus 1 over 2 and negative 7 plus 3 over 2. So we'll have m equals negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2 over 2. Negative 7 plus 3 is negative 4 over 2. So we'll get m equals negative 2 divided by 1, negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1, and negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Like I said, you are now doing pages 5, 6, and 7 of your booklet.